I started having mammograms at about the age of 36 as well. And that's because my best friend in North Carolina got diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 30 years of age. So I begged my doctor when I was living in North Carolina, no, I'm sorry, Washington, D.C., to allow me to get mammograms. Year after year, he would say, no, you're too young, no, you're too young, and it was mainly because the insurance does not want you to have the mammograms before the age of 40 because they're not going to cover them. So finally he did, and I was about 36. Well, my journey started when I was 42 years of age. At this point, I was living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and it was the end of October. As a matter of fact, it was this exact day that I found the lump myself. So I strongly encourage everyone here, men as well, you know your body. Who knows your body better than anyone else? Be sure to feel your breast. Feel the area, the lymph node area. I found my lump in the right breast, and it was hard. It didn't move, so I know that wasn't normal. And what I did, I called my primary and I asked to come in, and she gave me a referral to go and have my mammogram. Well, I had that mammogram, and 2 days later, they asked me to come back to have a sonogram or a ultrasound. So I was like, okay, all right, so I did. And so the results came back, and they came back as a simple cyst. This was in November. So I knew I was going home my mammogram was due. My mammogram was not due until December. So remember, I found the lump in October. So I had to wait until it was time for my annual mammogram. So I had the mammogram, and they had me come back 2 days later to do the ultrasound, sonogram, and then it came back as a simple cyst. Well, I was going home. I was coming home to be with my family for Christmas. So I was so happy to get the news that it was just a simple cyst. Because I didn't want to give my family bad news. You know how we are. We're always thinking about others, as she said, than ourselves. So I went home. I called my mother, first of all, to let her know the good news. So I said, Mom, it came back as a simple cyst. Praise God. We were just so elated, just so happy and elated. And I always use Psalms 103:3, who forgives all thy iniquities, who heals all thy diseases. I came home to Florida and had a good time with my family during that time. And what happened is a couple of months in February, I started having problems with my wrist, the carpal tunnel. And I asked my primary physician, I said, what are we gonna do about this lump in my breast? Can we have it removed? You know, 'cause I don't wanna keep this thing. I wanna have it removed if there's a way we can get rid of this early. So she said to me, we'll have you come back in 6 months from that December visit to check it out again. And that's something that they typically do. I think Dr. Parley, you mentioned something, you know, that nature. You know, you kind of come back later, you know, for them to check things out. So I said, okay. And that's what I did. But I would be praying night after night, asking God to reveal to me, what is this lump? Show me, give me a sign. What is this? The months went by, April came along, and I started getting quick, sharp pain. And it was very painful. Not all the time, but every other day or something of that nature. You know, so I knew that wasn't normal either. So I called my primary physician, and I said to her, I'm having pain in this breast. Not the left breast, but that right breast. So she said, well, you come on in, and I'll refer you to a surgeon, a breast surgeon. So she did, and he was within walking distance from her office. So I went to the office, made an appointment with him. That was a Friday when I saw her. Monday is when I got the appointment with him. He tried to do a needle biopsy, but he couldn't get any fluids out of it. So he said to me, I don't know what this is inside of your breast, but we're going to do something about it. So he scheduled for me to have a biopsy, and he wanted to do it maybe a week after that. And I said, no, we can't do it that soon. I had a graduation I had to go to in Washington, D.C. I had promised these students I would be back for their graduation because I resigned from Howard in December of 2007. So I said, and plus my mom has to be here with me. So let's schedule it out a little bit further. So we did. It was about 2 weeks from that time. My mom came up, and also that same best friend from North Carolina, she came along with us. As a matter of fact, she had to do the driving for us. So I went and we had that that biopsy, and that was on May 21st. I found the lump end of October. The doctor called me back May 23rd to give me the news that it was malignant. I now had breast cancer. The size of that tumor was a lot bigger than what it was when I first found it. When you find something that you know is abnormal, I found this lump and it was small like a bean. It will feel hard. It's not going to be movable. So when you do your self-breast exam and you feel something that you know is not normal, just think about the fact that it's hard, it's not going to move, and it could be the size of a pea, it could be the size of a nickel, it could be different sizes. But don't take it lightly. Please make sure you see a doctor to get checked. So after the doctor called me, about 20 minutes later, my mother's pastor called, Reverend R.B. Holmes in Tallahassee. And he prayed for me and with me. And about another 30 minutes, one of her best friends from church called me, Mrs. Powell, and she also prayed for me and with me. I then went out on my balcony and I prayed and asked God, and I gave it to him. I said, Lord, this is your battle. I released it and gave it to him. So we then scheduled, and when he gave me that news, of course, I was in disbelief. I was in shock because I just could not believe that word, cancer. But I didn't let it bother me. I kept going, moving forward, because I had turned it over to the Lord. So we scheduled for me to have the surgery, to have it removed. Well, no, he told me he wanted me to go and see a oncologist. So I said to him, he asked me to make my decision what I wanted to have, and I decided I wanted to have a lumpectomy and radiation. But he also told me he wanted me to go see an oncologist. So I said, okay, I don't know, I need to see an oncologist. So I went to the oncologist, and the oncologist told me that I would need to have chemotherapy. Chemotherapy? That was not in my plan. That was not my decision. My doctor asked me to choose what treatment options I wanted. So I said, okay, all right, so chemotherapy. And I was like, well, why do I need to have chemotherapy? She told me the size of that tumor was 2.5 centimeters. That is probably about the size maybe of a nickel, perhaps a quarter, Dr. Crowley. I'm not 100% sure, but that's about the size I think it was. So what we did, I had the surgery June 17th, but I had to have a port placed first. The port was placed, and then I had the surgery June 17th, a few days before my birthday. I just turned, I guess, I was 42. After the surgery, I had to wait a few weeks before I could start chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, I had 8 rounds of chemotherapy. I did lose my hair, but hair grows back. During the process, I went home also to a wedding, and my hair started coming out in the second round of chemo. I mean, hair from everywhere, underarms, just hair everywhere. And like I stated, I knew my hair would grow back, so I didn't let that bother me. I turned it over to the Lord, and I know that He was going to be there with me through my journey. My mother was there for my first chemo treatment. My sister came for my second chemo treatment. In between those treatments on a Sunday, there was a lady that came to my church, and she was doing a survey of women 50 and up. So I went to her after church service was over, and I asked her, what about the women under 50? I'm only 42. I'd like to know more about, what options I may have, or, there was a support group that she told me about, and she said, hold on, I got something for you. So she introduced me to this support group. They meet every Thursday, not every Thursday, one Thursday out of the month. These were sisters that you could not ask for a better group of sisters. They had breast cancer, some had radiation, some had mastectomy, some had lumpectomy, some just had radiation. They were all different, they came from all different walks of life. Some were like my sisters, some were like my aunties, some was like my mother. I met them Thursday when my sister was with me the second treatment. And my sister met the ladies, and she called my mom, and she told my mom, she said, Mom, she said, Lisa is going to be okay. These ladies are going to take care of her. But let me rewind and go back. With my surgeon, my oncologist, when I told her that I was here in North Carolina alone, I didn't have any family, she said to me, she said, we're your family now. So that gave me so much reassurance that I was definitely going to be okay. That felt so warm to hear that from a doctor, from your specialist, the oncologist, to say that to you. In the meantime, I went through the chemotherapy, but once I got that diagnosis, I called friends from Africa to Alaska and the waters in between. My church family in North Carolina, my church family in Washington, D.C., and my church family at First Baptist Institutional Church. They all prayed for me. So prayer works. Believe in prayer and the Almighty. He's always there for you. Faith is the size of a mustard seed. You have to have faith. You have to have faith and believe in yourself. It starts with you. You and the Almighty. After receiving my chemo ended in November, late November. So I was receiving chemo from late July to December, basically. And I had to wait for radiation. Well, that year, 2008, was the inauguration of President Barack Obama. I drove my little self from North Carolina to Washington, D.C. to be there to see that inauguration. However, going through chemotherapy, it took your body through so many different changes. I am sitting here cold now because chemotherapy kind of takes you through things like that. I went to Washington, D.C. I had my heavy coat, scarf, hat, everything, but I could not bear that weather. I couldn't. So I went back to the house where I was staying, which was much warmer. So after that, I went back to North Carolina to start my radiation treatment. Radiation, I was getting 18 rounds of radiation, and it was every day. And the last one, that booster, the 19th. They gave me some cream to use, and I would put it on my breast. So I never peeled. Some women would peel, depending on how many rounds of radiation you would have. Some women would have radiation as long as 32 weeks or 36 weeks. I didn't have that many. My breast tissue began to discolor around the 16th treatment, but it never peeled. Some women, the tissue would peel, it would slough off. When I went through chemo, I never got sick, I never got nauseated, I didn't lose my appetite either. I also had the ACT, Adriamycin, Cytoxan, and Taxol. Those are some dangerous, wicked chemotherapy, but I was blessed that I did not get sick, as some women do during the treatment. Going back to my radiation, I finished the radiation, and I did pretty well with the radiation. Like I said, my skin didn't peel or anything like that. The thing that I would like to share with you to end my story, the survivorship, I have been spiritually moved by this journey. It has inspired me to reach out and talk about how good God has been to me. I grew up in First Baptist Institutional Church as a shy little girl. We used to have to do our Christmas speeches, Easter speeches, and things of that nature. I would always say my speech, my head down. I was so afraid to look out to the family that I went to church with every single Sunday. Sunday school, BTU on Sundays. We had Sunday school, we had choir rehearsal, but that was just my nature. This right here, this breast cancer journey brought something out of me that I can now feel comfortable speaking in front of a crowd of people, whether it's 2 to 5 to 10 to 15 to hundreds and thousands. I have spoken to several groups and different types of organizations, and it was my pleasure. I've also participated in a tea, and also gave my story with some of the members at that tea party. That brought my mom and I together. She and I had never had a tea together. So that was very rewarding. Words of encouragement from one survivor to another. You will make it. Keep your faith in God. He will bring you through it. Keep positive energy in your circle. It's very important that you keep positive energy, positive people in your circle. That will relieve a lot of stress from your body. Your body is going through so much when you're getting these treatments. And as I think I can't remember her name, but she mentioned about rest. Rest is very important as well. Keep praying. Keep believing. Believe in yourself. Believe in the Almighty. Early detection is your best protection. And I thank you all so much.